Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the world, about music, books and movies that I find interesting, or that I like, or a combination of the two. So I'm coming to you from Arctic Norway, but I originally grew up in the United Kingdom. I come from a town called Swindon, which is not that far from Bristol, which again is not that far from Wales. And today I'm going to be talking about the Welsh band, the Manic Street Preachers. I haven't planned this video in detail, but I kind of want to talk about why this band were important to me and why I'm very disappointed with their development. So the Manic Street Preachers come from the valleys in Wales, which is quite a working class area. At the same time as it's rural, there were a lot of mining communities there, which were very affected by the recession and the conservative policies of the 1980s. The Manic Street Preachers became big in the early 90s, and they kind of got a lot of media attention initially by being a bit shocking, a bit outspoken. They had a kind of weird combination of punk rock, glam rock, and hard rock that was sort of influenced by Guns N' Roses at the same time as it was influenced by The Clash. Mixed into all of this, they had a certain political radicalism. Their first album had a song called Nat West-Barclays-Midlands-Lloyds, which was about the banking system and about how capitalism launders blood money. They also talked a lot about being young people alienated under capitalism and hegemonic culture. They've also always had a kind of tastelessness about their music. On that first album, the drums were removed by the producer and replaced with a drum machine. I like drum machines, but it totally doesn't make sense in that context. Their second album really had a kind of glam rock type of sound to it, very slick, at the same time as they had songs about self-harm and depression. So always been a kind of weird mishmash of juxtaposed cultural things and phenomena and perspectives, which is kind of what made them interesting, but they always seem to have a certain political core. Their most respected album maybe is The Holy Bible, which came out in the mid-90s. Their rhythm guitarist and who they have two lyricists, Nicky Wire, the bassist, and Richie Edwards, the rhythm guitarist. He wrote more of the lyrics and had more conceptual influence on The Holy Bible. And the lyrics on that album are really confrontational. They have songs about eating disorders, the Holocaust, very critical of America, extremely critical of capitalism, but at the same time, this certain angry libertarian, anti-censorship kind of stance. For me, as a kid, the Holy Bible kind of opened me up to radical politics. I think that in the 90s there were certain bands like Public Enemy, like Rage Against the Machine, and also the Manic Street Preachers who presented a more literary, more politically savvy form of rebellion to young people. And for me, I think that I can thank those bands and some others for the fact that I never slid into this kind of edgelord right wing rabbit hole that a lot of people of my generation have kind of fallen into, especially men. But they've always, like I said, been contradictory. Nicky Wire famously said that he hoped that Michael Stipe would go the same way as Freddie Mercury, which to me is an appallingly homophobic thing to say. At the same time as Nicky Wire very publicly used to wear makeup and feather boas to kind of provoke homophobic or transphobic people. So it's kind of incoherent, but enough of a useful, interesting critique of the status quo that it inspired a lot of people. after Richie Edward died, which was shortly after the Holy Bible came out, or actually he disappeared, but I think it's fair to say that he died. They released an album called Everything Must Go, and from that point on, their music became a lot more mainstream, and honestly, sonically, got worse. Everything Must Go, I consider to be a good album. I like a lot of the music on that album, and they also were still writing some really beautiful songs. A Design for Life is a very moving critique of how the working class in the UK is patronised and held in place through a kind of poverty of ambition, but also low expectations placed upon us. Small Black Flowers That Grow in the Sky is about an ape held in a zoo, which I think also sort of doubles as an exploration of Richie Edwards' depression. Oh, and another song about Sylvia Plath on that album. It's empathic. It seems to have compassion. And then after that album is when their music did genuinely get bad. They released an album called This Is My Truth, Tell Me Yours, which really, I think, was designed to get radio play. It sounded a bit like Bryan Adams. There was a lot of kind of synthesized strings, and I can't listen to most of the music on it. I really think it's awful. But even that, they had a #1 single from it called If You Tolerate This, Then Your Children Will Be Next, which was very much about anti-fascism and about if you tolerate this, meaning fascism or oppression, then it will have consequences for your children. So I'm talking about all this now because the Manic Street Preachers have just recently come out with a new album called Critical Thinking. And every time they come out with a new album, I always read a review which makes me think that maybe this album is going to be worth listening to again. And I always go back and try to listen to them, and they're never very good. But this new album was disappointing in a different way for me, because it starts with a song called Critical Thinking. And for the first thing, Nicky Wire is doing vocals on it, the bass player, the lyricist that I mentioned. Normally their vocalist and the guy who writes the music is a guy called James Dean Bradfield, who has an incredible rock singing voice. So even though their music often isn't great anymore, he's a very good singer. Nicky Wire, on the other hand, is not a good singer. So that's a bad start. He's reciting his own lyrics, and it starts with a chorus, which is the most obnoxious, stupid chorus I've ever heard. It just goes, "What happened to your critical thinking? What happened to your critical thinking?" Which, okay, who are you addressing? Because if you're talking to me, I'm already offended. That's the most kind of patronizing, nagging way to start an album. But maybe Nicky Wire has observed something in the culture that he feels we haven't thought critically about, that he feels that we haven't understood. So let's read the lyrics to this song. It's okay to not be okay. Live your best life. Be kind. Have some empathy. Speak truth to power. It's your lived experience. Be your authentic self. Be fitter. Be happier. Speak your truth. As we enter this page, I feel we meet together. Or maybe not. Maybe as we hurtle down the avalanche to the cul-de-sac of a nondescript nowhere land where J.G. Ballard once took a stand. Free ports. Free. And then back to the chorus. Why is he sarcastically saying be kind? Have some empathy. Talking about lived experience. Be your authentic self. This sounds like a guy in his 50s getting angry about identity politics on the internet and saying a load of buzzwords and then throwing J.G. Ballard in as some appeal to counterculture and the intelligentsia. But maybe not. Let's go on. Let's see what else he's talking about. Skyscrapers of untruth, customized feeds, net neutrality, smart meters, smart water, smart fucking motorways, body positivity, believe in yourself, imposter syndrome. Fuck that. Okay, so as my friend Matthew from Wales, who plays in the band MeAgainstMisery, which is a kind of actual political rock band, said, he chooses the most asinine, harmless things to get angry about. Body positivity. He's upset about positivity. He's upset about people on the internet saying be authentic. What happened to your critical thinking? He's saying. Nikki, critical thinking about what? There's nothing on this album that is directly critical of the type of disaster capitalism and clear slide into fascism that's occurring in the world now. So I went back to their previous album and I tried to listen to that because I thought, okay, maybe I'm being unfair. There was a song on their previous album called Orwellian, and it starts by saying, "We live in Orwellian times. It feels impossible to pick a side." I would suggest to you that if it feels impossible to pick a side in a world where people are making abortion illegal, where they're making trans people illegal, where they're talking about deporting people in huge numbers, then you might be on the wrong side of history. So I think it's deeply sad to see people who, okay, maybe were flawed and maybe were a bit inclined to strike a radical pose, but who at least seemed to care at one time, complaining about smart motorways and body positivity and how difficult it is to take a position in our political climate. What do you think about the Manic Street Preachers? Have you ever even listened to them? Do you love them? Do you come from Wales? Have you been to Swindon? Did you listen to this new album? And if you did you get through it? Drop me a comment. Let me know. Thanks for listening. Lots of love.